Our next speaker is Professor Devendra Jalihal. He is a professor of electrical engineering in IIT Madras, a mentor of a lot of young blood and students there. Each of the students who get to join IIT, typically the old IITs, have to go through a tapasya. In fact, that's a huge multi-thousand crore, maybe 40, 50,000 crore industry called coaching institutes. I don't know if you're aware. And people struggle hard. 2-3 years of their youth they spend just to get into the IIT. And he and his colleagues have the opportunity to mold them. And he's going to share with us what it means to channelize the youth for entrepreneurial skills, for their talents, and for the productivity. Do you know why? Because youth today are so colonized in their mind. Indians today are so colonized in their thinking. They are so, I do not know what to say, deep into believing in some false thoughts, wherein they have been told that there is something called the state will dole out, they need to agitate, they need to be aggressive, they need to demand their rights and entitlements, and they continuously need to keep everything in that pot-boiling state, right? Instead, the Indic way over the past 10,000 years have been to allow everybody to manifest their innate entrepreneurial ability, right? So we'd like to request Professor Devendra Jalihal to share his thoughts with us. Professor Jalihal.
Had excellent program since morning, and I'm the only person stopping you from your lunch, so I will be brief. If the excellent speaker before me took 16 minutes, I'll probably try to better that record. Okay. So we had Swami Narasimhanandaji in the morning, talk about entrepreneurship. I mean, he did an excellent job, so I hope I will give you my thoughts on that. I think, next one, please. I think it's not in view mode. Control F5 for view? Huh? Control? Oh, only F5. Yeah, F5. I think he huh? Okay, so I mean, so I'll start with some very old book that Al-Biruni wrote on India. He came to India along with Muhammad Ghazani 1,000 years ago, just as the Brihadishwara temple was getting built here. And he was a scholar, a polyglot. He himself was born, somewhere in Uzbekistan and learned Persian. And then he wrote this book on India in Arabic. The book itself is a very big book. It's in 2 volumes, as you can see, and sometime in 1875 or thereabouts, a German scholar translated a book written by a Uzbeki who's, probably was closer to Persian, but wrote the book in Arabic. This German scholar translated it into English. So you can see that, how many different hurdles it has passed through. And it's a big book. I would request all of, younger people to read this book, just for the information about what India was, right, 1,000 years ago. So I'll just read one particular extract from that book. It says, the Hindus believe that there is no country but theirs, no nation like theirs, no kings like theirs, no religion like theirs, no sciences like theirs. Right? By 10th century, if you go by today's assessment, the classical India was already on the decline. Right? And yet, ordinary Indians Ordinary Indians, I'm not talking about scholars, ordinary Indians believed that theirs is the best country, right? Their philosophers, sciences are the best, right? To create something new, ordinary people need to have a belief in themselves like that, right? And so Al-Biruni said Indians had that belief 1,000 years ago. Of course, Edward Sakow, the person who translated those books, he also says in defense of Al-Biruni that to Biruni, the Hindus were excellent philosophers and good mathematicians and astronomers. He duly appreciates their mental achievements. Speaking of the construction of the ponds at the holy bathing places, our Chakravarti Sulibeli is now involved in cleaning them up. I'm glad that he mentioned Gadag because I'm from Gadag. So, it's very happy that he gave the example of my hometown. Speaking of the construction of the ponds at holy bathing places, he says, in this, they have attained a very high degree of art, so that our people, meaning the Muslims, when they see them, wonder at them. The bathing arts that Chakravarti ji showed in these slides, and they're unable to describe them, much less to construct anything like them. So the bathing ghats, the Kalyanis that he talked about, are the ones caught Al-Biruni's attention, and he talks about that, right? So that was Al-Biruni talking about India 1,000 years ago. Let's go to this second book. Again, I want everybody to read this book. A great Gandhian scholar, Dharampal, wrote this book somewhere around 1980s, if I'm not mistaken, right? What happened was in 1931, Gandhiji attended a round table conference in London. And at that time, he was, while speaking about India, he said, to the British audience, he says, India had a very good education system before the Britishers came. It was like a beautiful tree, and the Britishers cut the tree down, is the statement Gandhiji makes. And I don't remember this British parliamentarian who was there in the audience. He says, oh, this is all bunkum. I mean, we built India. We gave you India. I mean, India didn't exist, right? Like, before the Britishers came, India didn't exist, so they had no education system. So Gandhiji says, no, that's not true. So they correspond, they carry out correspondence for 5-6 years, but Gandhiji is so busy that he could not bring out the evidence, right? Dharampal is a Gandhian inspired by Gandhiji. In 1970s and 1980s, he spends a lot of time in the archives and brings out what early Britishers wrote about India and the education system. I mean, the whole lot of works of Dharampalji. So this beautiful tree is about what the Indian education system was, right, in late 18th century or early 19th century. He says, the British decided to find out the intricacies of the Indian education system in around 1750. Therefore, a survey was ordered in 1822 and was conducted by the British district collectors, because already Britishers were ruling. In the survey, it was found that Bengal presidency had 1 lakh village schools. In Madras presidency, there was not a single village without a school. In Bombay presidency, if the village population was 100, extremely small village, there will be a school. The teachers as well as students of all castes were in the schools. The Brahmins accounted for 7 to 48%, depending on what place it is, among the students, and rest all were from various castes. So are the teachers, right? From all backgrounds. Further, all children had their education in their mother tongue. The equivalent of the present-day primary education lasted from 4 to 5 years, meaning a huge percentage, nearly 30% of the children in these 3 presidencies, which the data Dharampalji presents, had education 4 to 5 years. We all know that it is universal primary education that is important for taking the nation ahead. This is Dharampalji writing, right? So 1750, Indian primary education system was better, meaning 30% of the children used to go to primary schools. So that's a second data point. Right? So that talks about what India was. The third one, of course, is a more recent book by economist Angus Madison. He died recently, I think 5-6 years ago. He has written a whole lot of books, right, on the world economy. And his specialty is economic history, right? He has surveyed the economics of all ancient civilizations, the Chinese civilization, Indian civilization, Roman civilization, and so on, right? And he says until 1750, China and India contributed 50% to the world GDP, right? And fascinating data, he says, if you look at the Indian contribution, year one is of the common era. Year one, Indian contribution was 32%. I mean, he makes this estimate from a lot of data that he found. Year 1000, it had come down a little bit to 28%. Year 1700, just before the British were conquering India, Aurangzeb was on his deathbed. Indian contribution to world GDP was 25%. 1950, on the eve of independence, it was 4%. And 2017, right, after 70 years of independence, our contribution to the world GDP is 3.1%. So what India was and what India is it comes out very well in Angus Madison's book, right? So the reason for talking about what India was, just to tell you that what it can be, right? But what is stopping us? There's a lot of negativity, right? A lot of negativity among people who ought to be making India a better place, right? I've just picked a few examples of negativity. I mean, if negativity is piled up as books, it probably occupies this entire room. The first book that comes to my mind in terms of negativity is Catherine Mayo's book, Mother India, right? And it was titled Mother India, right? Many Western ladies came. We talk about Bhagini Nivedita, who came. We talk about Mother, Aurobindo Mother, who came, and we talk about Annie Besant. Chennai has very close connection to Annie Besant, who came, right? But the good that these ladies did is offset by one Catherine Mayo's book, right? And she paints the country as sexual perverts, there's child marriage, there is rape. I mean, it's like reading Indian newspapers today, right? If you read that, thanks, to Catherine Mayo, right? Because we are all following Catherine Mayo tradition. It is said that every New York Times correspondent who comes to India first reads that, right? And the book was so, it was so hurtful to Indians that Mahatma Gandhi himself, wrote a review. He says, Catherine Mayo says, she doesn't say that India has gutters. She says India is gutters. Okay, so that's a whole lot of negativity. Then the second negativity I want to talk about is Bharat Ratna, Amartya Sen's book, Argumentative Indians. Right, nice book. I mean, I think all of us should read. But there's a distortion of the tradition. There's a chapter he says, I don't agree with Krishna, because he says he reads Bhagavad Gita as a war manual. Right? I mean, Bhagavad Gita, all said and done, has a long tradition of Indian scholarship working on that. I mean, from all the acharyas, from Abhinava Gupta to modern Balagangadhar Tilak, Mahatma Gandhi, and Srila Prabhupada Swamiji. Everybody has written commentary on Bhagavad Gita. Nobody thought of Bhagavad Gita as a war manual, right? First person to see, right, is Amartya Sen. He says, I disagree with Krishna. And he says, I was taught in my school that it is okay to disagree respectfully. So he says, I respectfully disagree with Krishna, because Krishna should have said to Arjuna, don't go to war. I mean, that's a very narrow reading, but yet, Amartya Sen being who he is, he does this, so that's a negativity. If Amartya Sen was respectful to Indian tradition, his student, Martha Nussbaum, threw all respect to the winds, right? She said, Hindus kill Muslims because of Bhagavad Gita. Because it says, go to war, kill, right? That's kind of a negativity from, and she's not no ordinary person. I mean, she's a professor of philosophy, University of Chicago, right? A student and partner of Amartya Sen, right? I mean, very, very big academic person, right? And no wonder with all this negativity, the ordinary Indian mind is so full of negative thoughts. This page I took from Indian Express that came last month, 20th August, the Chennai Indian Express, right? I mean, which is considered to be whatever, pro-BJP or whatever. But it has got this, I don't know from where they got this. He says, India is bad because India is not secular, right? India is bad because India has got caste system. I mean, and then they say, number one country in the world, they say is China, because they have all these nice things, women liberated, no caste system, they don't believe in God, so best country is China, okay? I mean, please look it up, it is the date, everything is there, and then US is ranked pretty low, 57, okay? Well, India is okay, 66 in that. I mean, totally meaningless, right? But yet it's there and it is said, and so with that kind of negativity, right? What negativity does? I mean, I'm getting into the fields of neurosciences. I'm not, a neuroscientist by any measure of training, but negativity makes problem harder. Whatever problem that you want to do as an entrepreneur, it makes it harder, and problems becomes harder, you can't solve them, opportunities are lost, it feeds more into negative. So it's a whole negative cycle that other people talked about. Instead, if there's positivity, right, that makes, I can do, can-do attitude. With can-do attitude, you can solve problems, and so on, right? And so that way. So having said all that, let me talk about the modern day problems, right? I mean, today, India is problem rich. We are looking for solutions, right? Solutions need to come from everywhere, right? This is the place now for entrepreneurs. I mean, you talk about healthcare, you talk about education, skills development, right? Agriculture with increasing urbanization, water, waste management, and as I was coming this morning, I turned on TV, and Prime Minister has said from September 15th, that is today, till August 2nd, we're going to have a Swachh Bharat program in a very big way, right? And so, huge opportunity, right? I was reading some documents that said India would be investing 4 lakh crores every year in cleanliness, because it's going to, huge opportunities, a place for coming up with a lot of solutions, sustainable solutions, solutions that can scale up in cleaning rivers, in cleaning water bodies, in cleaning cities. So it's a huge opportunity for anybody with, entrepreneurship, right? The next problem I want to mention is automotive sector, where transportation is becoming smart. It's becoming electric vehicles. In the next 12 to 13 years, it is said IC engine driven cars will vanish, right? It'll all be electric vehicles. The reason why this is disruptive is, 1 in 10 labor force in India is working in some way or the other in automotive sector, right? Whether repairing scooters, making parts, right? And so on, or supplying oil. I mean, imagine everything will change, and not distant. I'm talking about, when you and I will be there. In next 10 to 12 years, transportation sector is going to see a disruption that is of gigantic proportions, right? It's going to change all employment, all economics that you and I know as of today, right? And so that's a huge opportunity. With every change, there's going to be a huge opportunity, right? And so I'll skip that. So, people have been doing small things. I mean, these are all examples of entrepreneurship. So here I'm giving you an example of a problem we faced with. We use what is called a QWERTY keyboard, right? It was designed for English 120 years ago. But with proliferation of all these electronic devices, everybody had only a QWERTY keyboard or versions of QWERTY keyboard, adapted for all kinds of languages, right? So this person, Aniruddha Joshi from IIT Bombay, he said, Indian languages are different. It's an Indian problem. We can't use QWERTY, right? He started understanding Indian problem. He came up with the idea of called Swara Chakra, right? How Indians conceive of their language, how do they write their language? It's not like, I put BAD and becomes a word. I mean, to me, Shrestha, the Shre is a whole composite. It's a Sanyukta Akshara, right? So he, composed a keyboard, and believe me, he first released Swara Chakra for Marathi. It became a hit. Then he released Swara Chakra for Bengal, right? He has 1 million downloads. I mean, you can go to Google Play Store today and check Swara Chakra Bengali. Probably the only Indian app that has got millions of downloads like this. Swara Chakra Tamil, right? 500,000 downloads. I mean, these numbers are visible in. So this is a small, one person doing, right? And so, I mean, there's a huge potential if we think of India as a problem-rich country which requires solution. Okay, so I'm done. So this is Tamil, so for an entrepreneur, right, we need our own insights, right? I mean, insights are, if Gita says, "Hato va prapsasi swargam," right? What it simply means is, if you fail in your entrepreneurship, you have gained experience. I mean, swarga is not something outside. Right? Hato va prapsasi swarga means you have failed in your entrepreneurship. In this thing, you have gained experience. If you win, if you succeed, obviously the name, fame, money, everything is there. Right? So simple ideas from Bhagavad Gita, can become guiding points in any entrepreneurship. So a samadrishti and karmayogi and sthita prajna doesn't mean that I view success and failure as equal, that I do not consider success as important. It just means when I'm working, right, the thoughts of success and failure should affect me from carrying out my work. That's all, right? I mean, success will come eventually. That, in the 18th Adhyaya, he says, wherever there is dharma, success is guaranteed, right? And so success will happen. It doesn't say success and failures they don't matter. It doesn't say that, success is not important. It doesn't say that success is maya or avidya. No, success is important, right? But success will come. But your thoughts, your action, they may not be clouded by this idea of success, right? So we need new Indians, youths, for this new India, and what Dr. Ravindra talked about in the morning, which was I'm trying to find the exact thing. So the neuroplasticity. So the Indian youth need a better neuroplasticity that makes all these differences. Right? So with that, I conclude. We have huge opportunities. Right? Problems are many for the entrepreneur. Indians, there's no dearth of skills and talents. Right? All we need is to get away from the negativity and think of India as the source of solutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. He did show with a lot of solid proof what it means to understand that we have a colonized minds, right? We were there, we have come to a state of begging where we look for approval and validation from the West. They say, yeah, this is good, then we all say, yeah, that is good. They say, no, that's not good, we don't. Instead, we solve our problems here and then export that capability to the rest of the world so the rest of the humanity can become better, right? In that sense, the Kurukshetra for entrepreneurial skills, talent and opportunities exist right in our midst. We have to solve our problems. Youth need not hunt for jobs, they create jobs.